So let's start with some introductions, and I guess we'll start at the end since Marcus is holding the microphone. So if you could just really quickly tell us who you are, what you do, who you do it for, and just a quick, pithy background note.
I'm Marcus. I spoke at Monitorama this morning. I work for Fastly. Prior to that, did a lot of monitoring stuff at Etsy, which I always accidentally name drop in talks for my current employer, which is not very good. Been doing monitoring for a really long time.
My name's Brad Lhotsky. I'm currently working at Craigslist. I do everything systems, everything security, everything monitoring. I've been doing that for a long time, kind of a jack of all trades and a master of none.
And and you used to work for a company out here in Amsterdam?
I did used to work for a company out here in Amsterdam called Booking.com. You may have heard of them. You may have heard they use graphite, and I might have some of that blame.
Let that sink. My name is Rick. If you were here yesterday, you might or might not have heard my talk yesterday. I work for the email classifieds group as an SRE, basically currently in charge of building a new global motors vertical platform together with the rest of the team. Monitoring background-wise, did that came out good? I basically spent 1 year of my life migrating Nagios to Sensu. Yeah.
My name is Dennis. I'm working for Marktplaats. It's a Netherlands classifieds website owned by eBay. So we are colleagues, but living in different cities. I'm doing just normal DevOps job there.
You don't participate in any open source communities?
No, I'm participating. I'm currently.
You're not like a core maintainer of any projects we might have heard of?
I'm currently co-maintainer of Graphite project.
Gasp.
And also participate in some like Go Graphite development or something like that.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you all. All right, so our first question, and it starts off with a bit of a, well, we'll just get into it. First there was cacti, and life was not great. Then we had graphite, and life got a little better. Push-based emitters to time series engines became the default model. Many years have gone by without much changing, and then a project named Prometheus became very popular. What do you think contributed to Prometheus's success, and do you think pull versus push will continue to dominate the monitoring landscape going forward? No, I want you to go last.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give it to somebody with a really strong opinion.
Okay, so I've participated in the conversations about push versus pull, and I've had an opinion on that in the past. And the more I take a step back from it and listen to people talk at conferences about some of the benefits of the pull methodology and why they move from push to pull, I feel like there are benefits to both sides. So you're never going to completely replace a push-based system because some systems just won't support a pull methodology. You might have infrastructure in the networking area that only does SNMP traps or something like that, or you need some sort of mapping between SNMP and your monitoring system. So I think they both fit into the same space just fine. They're not really competing. They each have their own use cases. One example that I could think of offhand is I have a lot of cron jobs that run on servers. And if I wanted to bring those into the Prometheus era, what do I, excuse me, sorry, need water. What do I need to do to actually get those cron jobs to emit data from an HTTP web service? I'm going to have to add complexity to my existing infrastructure when it's already possible to just fire an event off into a Carbon line protocol stream and collect that. Now, I could spin up a Prometheus exporter that translates between Graphite and Prometheus, but that's, again, another piece of complexity that I'm adding to the infrastructure. And I prefer the simplest easiest solutions to things, because those are the simplest and easiest things to actually debug and figure out over the long term. So always keep it simple, do the simplest thing that will work, and sometimes that means you'll have to use one or the other.
I'd like to get Marcus's take.
I think this is like the most overhyped argument ever, the push versus pull thing, because at the end it doesn't really matter. Like either you initiate the connection or something else initiates the connection to you. Like fundamentally that's what it is.
Clearly an AllSpa disciple.
Anyway, to sit on the fence, I don't know. But it's a case of like when we were looking at rolling out Prometheus, like a design decision was, oh my God, it does pull. We have to use this system. It was like it was a characteristic of the tool as opposed to being a defining characteristic of the tool. To Brad's point, it does add complexity. So like that, and we had to build all of that PromSD, like the sidecar and the proxying machinery to be able to do what was actually pretty easy to do with push, but it was a trade-off we were willing to make for the operability of the system, like how simple Prometheus is to run, how easy it is to integrate with other things. So what we traded off in the push side, because with all of our existing services, we had just like dozens and dozens of random Ruby scripts and Perl scripts and Python scripts that are like trying to pull metrics out of systems. We traded that complexity for, we can just natively write the exporter and the instrumentation in our services by default now. So, what we gave up with one, we've benefited in many other ways, but we have added a little bit of complexity. So it's like any of these kind of systems, it's just always a series of trade-offs. And I think just one of those, the push versus pull, it's a bit of a weak kind of just sort of argument overall.
I'll accept that answer. Rick?
Yeah, I think I'm totally with you, right? So the push versus pull also, when we decided for Prometheus for the new platform that we're building, it was really just something that came with Prometheus. It was not really the reason we went with it. At the end of the day, the success of Prometheus is a mixture of things to me. It's like the simplicity that it has, so really that you can just run it out of the box is one of the really big pro arguments, but also how extremely fast the open source community has evolved around it. So basically, for almost every problem that you have that is not super customized, like the problems you were facing, they're very, very custom to your setup. But like if you run a set of open source tools in a public cloud, whatever, you will most likely already find either a solution or a project that's in progress, or there's a community interested. So it's like, that was a heavy, heavy pro point for us at least. And then I think last but not least, it's not negative for a project to be adopted by Google for its interest also, and it's being known by more and more people, right? And that also adds then more to the community, which at the end of the day makes the success for me of the tool.
Dennis?
From my perspective, push with pull is not a main reason why Prometheus start to be successful project. I think that's what guys already mentioned. It's a simplicity of the project, but also tag support. So this support of the tags and easy multi-dimensionality really push this forward, and Graphite at that time didn't have that, so that's why we were backed up a bit. But for now, probably you guys heard that there is a project named Open Metrics. So it's like adopting current Prometheus metrics format as a open standard for metrics, pretty much similar to current Prometheus format. But this format doesn't describe any push or pull methodology. It can be push, and currently Graphite already supporting tags, and I think implementing open metrics there, it's like a couple of hours of work when it will be finally, specification will be finally finalized. So, yeah, that's it.
All right, all valid answers, although I was really hoping for a fight. All right. I honestly, because of there was so much discussion around that, I'm just curious. I didn't plan on opening this up to the audience, but I mean, does anybody have any questions for the panel regarding this topic? Okay, last chance. All right. All right. So now we're getting real trolly. Monitoring and observability. How do you compare the terms? Has the introduction of what?
No, it was like, I mean, you sent us, so the things you sent us the questions in advance so that we could like talk about them already, right? And so Dennis and I were already having a talk and we were like, what the fuck is the difference here? It's like, because it's for non-native English speakers, the words themselves are from their meaning very closely together. So we were already having a chat. It was like, yeah, let's just not go first.
Oops.
So we will not go first.
Okay, so let me finish. So do you think that this transformation of the terms, right? I mean, I think as a community, we used to refer to all of these things, the monitoring, let's just say the metrics, the logging, the tracing, all of this as monitoring. I mean, that's kind of how we started. We all know how to use these tools. We know what the technologies are. And we just, I think as a community, assumed this is what you call these things. I think we've started to refine that based on science and discipline. And we understand now kind of better that monitoring is probably a subset of observability as an umbrella term. So with that said, do you think that having the discussion, do you think that where we are now is a net win for our community, or do you think it's been a distraction?
Well, first to clarify for the non-native English speakers, what those two words have been explained to me, because I was curious as well as a native English speaker why we were talking about this. Someone clarified on Twitter that monitoring is knowing that you have a problem, observability is knowing why. And to me, that distinction was kind of like sysadmin versus DevOps. Since I started as a sysadmin, I've always wrote code because I hate doing the same thing twice. DevOps came along and it's like, that's doing your job. If you're not turning your work into code, then you're not really going to ever advance in your career. You're always going to be stuck in this one little niche. And I think the same thing is true with the monitoring and observability. When we started talking about monitoring, we always wanted to get to the point to know why we have the problem. We just don't want to know that we have a problem. It's not like we, implemented Nagios and then we're done, we can go to the pub. No, because Nagios brings us back from the pub. So we need to know why Nagios is bringing us back from the pub, because that's really important. So I think that, calling it observability, I guess, gives some sort of delineation in the sand to say, like, okay, now we're moving on to this bigger, set of things where we do the same thing that we did with sysadmin, calling it DevOps. We kind of formalize it and build a framework for it. But to me, if I say the word monitoring and you're like, well, let me tell you about this observability stuff, I'm just going to probably walk away, because that's what we're doing. That's what I mean when I say monitoring as well.
Anybody?
No, mine will be super short, believe it or not. The original question was, do you think it's good that we're having that it's bringing all this attention?
Yeah,
I think
you think
yes, it's good that people are thinking about whatever it is they want to call it. I don't like the kind of the divisiveness that's happening in the community around
whatever could you be referring to? around,
well, this means one thing and it can't possibly mean the other thing, and trying to have this really binary discussion around it of, I've worked in plenty of places where we did monitoring and yeah, it's been awesome. We've found heaps of problems. We've been able to, diagnose what's going wrong. We have had other tools that, we've, even going back, 10 plus years, like Splunk was doing a lot of this stuff for us, where we could feed our logs in. We were doing, a very primitive version of tracing by just putting request IDs in log lines and joining them together before distributed tracing was a thing. So I think really it's, the positive part is people are kind of having the arguments and people are thinking more about what they're doing to observe their systems or monitor their systems, whatever they are. But trying to kind of carve out, this is one thing, this isn't another thing, and if you're not doing this, you're doing it wrong, is just like harmful for everyone. No one wins, and you know, DevOps is nearly 10 years old and no one knows what it means still. It's like common sense.
Yeah, I have an interesting, I guess, I don't know, take on that, and I agree with you. It's funny because when I started Monitorama, it was largely in the operations space, where operators working with these systems, and it was always a goal of mine to get the engineers involved in the conversation. And we knew that instrumentation was a thing and that telemetry was a thing, but without a better way of describing how it is that we wanted to start inspecting these systems, I think we were always kind of a little bit behind. So I think that has helped in the overall conversation and making it a shared, shared language, nomenclature, I guess, that we're all on the same page. So I think it's a huge net win in the sense that engineers are more part of that overall system now. So.
Totally agree.
I'm totally always afraid of dropping it if it doesn't have a cable. So now that I learned what actually observability means, I think it's good the way it evolves, right? So the more you actually know about your system, the better you're able to prevent things from happening. So basically, the situation described, Nagios gets you back from the pub, so what do you want? Next time you want to stay in the pub longer, right? And observability basically gives you more information about the systems you're taking care of. And that just lets you allow to forecast things easier and better than also I think it was probably, like, I'm not in the industry for that long, but I think it's better possibilities than it was 10 years ago. Right? Yeah, okay. So I don't see observability as anything negative. It's, for me, probably only positive.
Yeah, for me, it's also observability is like another buzzword, like DevOps. So I mean, when developers and operation engineers working together when designing some system and implementing some system, they just need to think how to get all possible insights from the system. So how to get all possible metrics, how to get all possible logs, how to get anything. And I think another thing which made observability a buzzword is like big data. 10 years ago, we're able to emit this amount of information, but we're not able to store it and process it. It's still the case. That's why we still have a big amount of talks and rumors about machine learning in monitoring and observability. But unfortunately, until now, I think engineers and people are still not really able to get all possible insights of this information. So probably we'll see that in the future. Is it really robots will help us with that or not? Or we are doomed?
We just need more math.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. That's actually a really good segue to our last question, which is, what is the biggest problem facing monitoring practitioners today and in the next 5 years? You can't say big data.
I can say exactly that. That's what I said. We have so much information. It's not a big data. It's just information. We don't know what we're gonna do with this. We have terabytes of logs. We have terabytes of metrics, but human brain is really limited, and we're not able to process that. I think this is the main culprit for now, and we need to decide what we're gonna do with this.
I think there's a constant challenge about monitoring because basically the underlying systems and the systems you take care of, the ones you own or don't own, but the ones that you're responsible for, they're constantly in progress, and that's the challenge that's always ongoing. So that's one of them. Also, still in 5 years, but I'm very interested to see how monitoring and the tooling around that evolves with the current strong tendency of things going towards the, well, I'm not going to say the bad word, towards function as a service. So I wonder how monitoring is going to go. Imagine you have a platform where everything, or a good portion of it, is based on function as a service. Are you then going to spin up everything that you need for your monitoring the old school way? So I'm very interested how that is going to go, and I would then consider that a big challenge.
I would have to say it's probably people are the biggest problems in everything that we do. Not just as the problems, but that we're just now starting to talk about the human elements of monitoring. I mean, if you look at the themes of Monitorama throughout the years, I think like this year may be the first year that there's been fewer alert fatigue talks than the rest of the stuff. So we're still trying to get our heads around, okay, well, we have all this data, we have this machine learning, we keep adding more data, and if we keep adding more data, most likely we're going to create more events, more alerts. Anomaly detection is one of those things where if you assume, you're looking for anomalous data points and you only have 1 million metrics per minute coming in, you have basically 65,000 alert points in your data stream every day if you're based on a standard distribution. So we have to think about the volume of data that we're sending, how we're communicating it to people, and then how the people are communicating it between each other. So how do I, as the sysadmin, bridge that gap to the developers so that they understand what we're monitoring? Because a lot of times when I have conversations with developers, they're like, why are you monitoring that? I don't care. It's still able to do this. And if it goes down, we don't lose any money. No one needs to get woken up in the middle of the night. I've had a number of conversations where developers were like, I didn't know that adding that alert meant it was waking someone up in the middle of the night. And folks were being woken up 3-4 times a night for a week on end. And they had never had that conversation with the developer who created the alert to say, why did you do this? Do you know it's waking me up? So I think it's people, it's communication. We can all do better in that area.
Yeah, totally +1 all of that. That's been one of the biggest things for us is with this whole Prometheus migration has been really getting the engineers thinking first class around, what does it mean for my service to be healthy? Like just being able to ask that question of yourself as an engineer, like, because you'll go, oh yeah, it runs and it does this and under a benchmark it does that. And it's like, well, but what does it really mean? Getting all sort of meta and zen about it all, what does it mean for that service to be healthy? So that's been a great help to us that now we have engineers that are really becoming super sympathetic to like how their services operate in production, how they know that they're healthy, and they're now starting to go on call for their own services. So it's in their best interests to make sure that they can describe exactly how healthy it is. The other point that I wanted to bring up too, because Joe's talk was super interesting, and this is one area that's everyone's tried but no one's succeeded yet, of like how do we get beyond the basic sort of mathematical analysis that we have now. So like analysing time series data has been like such a difficult problem for such a long time. And we've seen all these evolutions in different systems for collecting the metrics and for presenting the metrics, but there's been a much slower uptake on how we analyse those. And, math is hard. And it's really hard to pull out. So, the Hestic talk also was like super interesting because it's like, oh, here's a framework that if you want to experiment with different models, like you can do that now. How we sort of push the state of the art on being able to like make more sense of the metric data we're collecting, I think is something that would be worth investing some cycles on.
Wonderful. All right. I think we're about out of time, but does anybody have any questions before we wind this up? No? Yes? No? Oh, scratching your head. Okay. No, I think we're good. Thank you very much. That was awesome. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Thanks, Rick.